What's going on? So this is a video I've been talking about doing for a little bit. This video is going to be about rebuilding the viscous coupler. I've read some articles on from Benjamin White on how to do it, and this is a huge shout out to him because I used some of his references and I got the parts that I needed for it, and I got my own silicone fluid that I talked about, but I'll break that down as I'm going. First things first, got to pull the viscous coupler off the wagon. So before I do that, the reason I know that my viscous coupler needs to be rebuilt, a few key symptoms. So I off-road my wagon quite a bit. I know if you're watching this, you may be a drag racer, you may be just another wagon enthusiast or someone who has a viscous coupler that needs to be rebuilt. When I'm in an off-road situation, I'm bound up the front end or the front end's off the ground. My back wheels are just getting minimal torque. I mean, hardly anything at all. Like at first I thought, well, that's just how it's designed, but then I started thinking about it. It used to work a lot better. Now I know why I did it, and this is a reason that it happens to a lot of people, is whenever you get the front wheels spinning, stop spinning them if you're not going anywhere. I made the mistake of just flooring it and throttling out, and what that does is this silicone fluid that's inside your viscous coupler, it's very heat sensitive. That's how it's activated. That's how it works. So when you cook your front wheels and that viscous coupler is turning without turning your back wheels, you're essentially destroying, you're killing all the properties of this silicone fluid. So with that said, some other reasons I know my viscous coupler got cooked. I talked about this in another video, but this is its own video. This is for viscous coupler rebuilds. I noticed my viscous coupler has been leaking on the garage floor. Like, you can tell the other fluids, but when you touch the silicone fluid, it's got a very different feel. It's very thick, and you can tell that it's out of there. And the reason that happens is these O-rings, these sealing O-rings, they get cooked. So when I did that, it cooked them, and I have a feeling whenever I pull the viscous coupler and actually open it up and see them, those O-rings are going to be shot. So I got the O-rings, I've got the new fluid, I've got some ideas on how to clean the plates. One more telltale sign that my viscous coupler is cooked is you can jack the front end up, put jack stands on just the front end, leave the rear wheels on the ground, put it in super low or first, and let out the clutch, and it should, in theory, when the wheels start spinning, it'll put enough torque to the rear end that'll push you off the jack stands. That the rear end will have enough bite to push you off the jack stands. Now that should happen. I tried to find the video I did a long time ago of me trying to test my wagon's viscous coupler. When I jacked it up, the front wheels are spinning and the rear wheels were still on the ground and they were not doing anything. It was minimum. You can see just a little rocking, but not nearly enough to push me off the jack stands. So that was the big key, like, oh yeah, my viscous coupler is cooked. That's what set all this in motion. That's why I'm going to go ahead and rebuild mine. And hopefully we can get through this together and it works out well, and we can do that test again. I couldn't find the footage to put in this video, but I will do the test again whenever I get my viscous coupler rebuilt of jacking the front end up and leaving the back wheels on the ground. So anyway, let me go ahead and pull that out right for you. I'm not going to show that video because you know how to do that. Alrighty, the viscous coupler is out. You got 4 10 mil star bits on this side and 4 on this side. Realizing that they really weren't that seized on, and I know they hadn't been probably ever taken off since the factory, but as soon as I took it off, you can see it's just pouring out of this thing. So the seal, one of these seals here, one of these quad seals that you get, that's what seals that side, and it's just, you can just, yeah, that's cooked. You can feel the silicone fluids broken down quite a bit, kind of like a Lucas oil kind of feel, if I was going to put it into a frame of reference so some of you guys would understand. So the next step is to go ahead and crack this thing open and give it a look-see and see what we got in there. Well, it's day 2 on the trying to rebuild the viscous coupler. I get kind of late last night and I realized I needed to just go to the parts store and grab some stuff. I was having a real hard time getting this carrier bearing off, and I talked to Benjamin White about it, and he suggested doing the pulley puller, and so it worked. As you can see, it just finally cranked off. I was really worried about pulling on this because there's a rubber boot that goes along the inside here that's actually attached to the bearing in there. And the rubber boot did stretch as it was coming up, but eventually the bearing just let go. So that's free now. So it's time to get back to work. Alright, I got I cracked that case open, got the lid off, and it wasn't really that hard. I was just kind of worried about how to get it, but I went back and referenced some of the old pictures, and just using a punch, knocking it straight through. You have there is a C-clip, or there's a spring clip here that you got to make sure it is off before you start smacking it, and that one just comes off the very back end. And then you just you hammer it through, and you can see all the this is what's inside your viscous coupler. These are the discs that spin. They're every other one is attached to the shaft, and for reference sake, we'll say the even ones are attached to the shaft, and the odd ones actually are attached to this outer case. So that's where your transfer of power is, and the thicker your fluid gets, the more transfer of power you get. So, looking at all this fluid, it's pretty gross, and you're going to find that when you ever get to it. So I've got a lot of scrubbing to do. I'm not going to record all that because if what I want to plan works, I'll let you guys know. But I'm going to get to cleaning this and try to get all this old silicone out. Looking at this one O-ring here, this is one of the O-rings you got to chase, or one of the O-rings you got to change. And that one actually looks in pretty good shape on mine. I didn't see a whole lot of leaking coming from that. There's a little bit of surface rust there, which I was kind of concerned about. I'll clean some of that up, and I think that was giving me a little bit of trouble getting the spring clip out. So I'll make sure I clean the surface rust up as I'm cleaning all this up. But it looks pretty good, guys. I'm happy with it. I was worried it was going to be in a lot worse shape. Alright, sorry for not doing a whole lot of handheld stuff, but this silicone grease, I don't want to get it all over my camera. You can already see my fingerprints all over it. So down in here, it's kind of hard to see on camera, and it's hard to see without me getting into it too much. But that's where your quad ring is. So this is what it looks like. You can kind of see it there. When I was poking around in my quad ring down there, you can see that it's actually torn. It's already flaked apart. I don't know if I'll be able to get it while I'm on camera or not. Pull this out. You can tell it's already ripped. But yeah, you can see it's pretty damaged already. So I'm going to go ahead and swap that out right quick. Get a little bit of fluid on this to lube this up. Okay. The quad ring, I just popped it in there, and it should be good to go. Like I said, go ahead and make sure you lube it up with a little bit of that silicone fluid that you have laying around. I just used a little bit of this residual stuff that I had. That way the shaft sits there nice. You can go ahead and put your shaft back in. What I'll do is go ahead and drop that into there like so. Give it a quick mallet tap. Until it stops. You can see when you have that channel, it's kind of hard to see on the video. When you have that channel exposed, that means it's good enough and deep enough in there. That's enough so your snap ring can go back on there and make sure your bearing's still nice and happy, that it'll spin freely. What I'm going to do next is start to drop the discs back in. One thing that I read from Benjamin and on his write-up is to go ahead and put about 2 ounces or so of fluid in here first, and then drop your first floating ring in there. It's kind of hard to tell. So on these packs of rings, the first and last slotted one like this, that actually goes to the case, they just kind of float. That it's kind of weird how it's designed, but that one floats without any kind of retainer. So what you'll see when you're taking apart these clutch discs is in between each little disc pack, you've got the round one, and you've got a slotted one, and inside the slotted one, they have these little retaining clips, or they're kind of like a little separating clip. It doesn't really retain anything, but it helps this outer ring one float in between. It's the same width. I'm not really sure the complete purpose of it, but in between each little pack has its little separator in there, and you need to make sure that to keep that all together, make sure that's all nice and happy. So what I did to clean these, you can kind of see in the time lapse, I just used brake clean. I used brake clean in the vat, and I just a couple shop rags, and I used probably about a pile of shop rags, but it was enough to get through there. Benjamin actually said that you can soak them in gasoline too, and it'll actually release some of that silicone fluid off there. I didn't have too much problem with the brake clean, just spraying them and just kind of rubbing them back and forth as you saw on the time lapse. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and put the 2 Torx nuts, those 240 Torx bolts back in here. Start filling my fluid up. I'll put a little bit in the bottom and drop my first couple discs in and let them settle. I've seen a couple people, what they'll do is they'll get an exhaust pipe and put it over here and push it in there. That's probably what I'll try to do, just kind of help it settle a little bit. Push them down, let the fluid come up, push it down, let the fluid come up. So talking to Benjamin also is another key point that I wanted to figure out is how much fluid to actually fill up. So he's suggesting to go right up to the top, of the, or just enough to cover the top last disc. So that's what I'm going to do with this rebuild, is I'm going to just fill it up just to go over the last top disc. So after I get all that done, I'll have to put the retaining clip back in there. I've got the one at the bottom already placed in there. I didn't really put that on video, but let's get down to business. Alright, so after all that drama and trying to take everything back apart, I've got the clip back in there that I was missing. And actually, when I was putting this thing together, I wasn't sure if I missed one of those centering rings. I did, and I found it. I dug about 3/4 of the way down through the plates and found the centering ring that I had misplaced. So actually, when I was putting them in there, I had a brain fart. I was like, did I put that one in there or not? And sure enough, one of the in between 2 of the plates, one of the those rings that you see that goes in between each plate set, I had put double stacked one on one and not put one on the other. So I put that together. So that's mine's at ease of that. I had a clip in there. That was a pain in the ass to get together. But with this sitting on here, I left the space heater on it, stacked on top of it with a steel plate, a battery, and a brick, just to kind of let it sit and let all the bubbles come out. I let the back screws out, the 2 Torx 40 bits. I let them kind of ooze out the back, and it made some more silicone grease on the floor, which is a mess. And sorry, Brooke, for getting that in the house. Hopefully I didn't get any in the house. But anyway, it's finally coming together. So now I'm going to make sure that O-ring is still good on that cap, and then put this back together, put all the bearings back together, make sure there's no clips over here missing that I missed. I'm going to go into a time-lapse mode where you can kind of see me put this back together. Hopefully it'll be cool looking. I think I went through all the steps. I think you can see how it all went back together. It was definitely harder to put back together with all the new silicone grease in there, because you can tell it's much thicker than the previous grease that was in there. And plus, when I put it together the first time, all the discs were clean. I added a little bit more fluid in there, which it kind of I put just maybe a few ounces back in there as I was putting in there, because I didn't want dry discs as I was putting it back in. So it's got a little bit more fluid than it had last time. Oh, another thing, before I forget. So I've done this before on axles, and I ended up making the same mistake when I was trying to drive this bearing out of there. I was actually hitting the top of this with a metal hammer, which I know how metal works. I know not to hit something that's threaded with a hammer, but I was doing it anyway just because I was kind of trying to figure out what to do. Well, lo and behold, I bent the threads and I could not get the nut back on there. So spare yourself some trouble and just tap it with this, or use a press like you should. Like I ordered a press over there, as you saw earlier. So I had to go and order a M22 by 1.5 millimeter die, and I chased the threads, and it is successful. I can get the nut back on there, so thank goodness I was able to save that. And it's good that I went ahead and got that anyway, so it's actually the same threads that are on the axle stubs. So if I ever bend another axle stub or have it where I can't thread it in, I can chase those threads, so that's a good pickup for me to have anyway. So anyway, let's get back to putting this thing back together. I'm ready to go mob with it. Alrighty, so we are rebuilt. It's all back together. Everything's back in there right. Everything's in there properly. I went ahead and notched the nut there. And like I said earlier, that is just an axle nut will work on that. So if you have a spare axle nut, which I actually ended up having a spare axle nut, you can use that. I think there's the hair taller, but I used the one that came on there originally. It's all together. I went ahead and put the dust shields back on just because they wasn't bothering anything. I saw one write-up that said that you didn't need the dust shields, but I went ahead and just put it back on just for shits and giggles anyway. The bearings are all still great. Like I got really lucky with mine. All my bearings are in really good shape still. I didn't have to replace those. I will go ahead and list the part numbers for the bearings in case you do want to rebuild yours. I did find a couple articles and a couple write-ups about where those bearings are, so I'll put whatever information I have in there on the bearings. But I'm going to go ahead and slap this back in the wagon and get back at it. Well, that's it for the viscous coupler rebuild. It turned out great. Would I do it again? Yeah, it's not that hard. Hopefully this video will help you guys kind of figure out what mistakes to avoid, like I did. Like with the spring clip, forgetting to put it back in. I do recommend a press. I could have done it without a press though. The only reason I needed a press really is because I had to take it back apart, and with that new fluid, there was just no way I was going to be able to smack that back out. So with the press, definitely a huge help. Not necessary though. If you guys have some comments about that, let me know, but that I could have done it without a press. Put all the dust covers back on. I've got some full test stuff coming up pretty soon for the channel, so be watching out for that. I think tomorrow I'm going to try to go mud, see how that new viscous coupler's working. Do a little bit of mud on the new lift too. Get a little bit more of a shakedown before we go to the off-road park. But yeah guys, if you have any questions about the viscous coupler stuff, let me know. All the rebuild information, all the parts you need will be in the description below. All the parts you need, the entire parts list is right in the description, right down here. So please, if you have a question, look down there before asking. I get hit up all the time, ask, well, where do you find the parts? Where do you find this? Everything is below. Everything will be down here. All the information, all the research I have will be below here. So hopefully this will help you guys out. Humongous thanks to Benjamin White for all the pro tips and helping me out with construction, deconstruction of the viscous coupler, kind of help me run through the process. So humongous thanks to you, man. Hat tip. Yeah, I'll catch you guys later. Peace.